Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So we've been going through the life of the Buddha leading up to his renunciation and then gaining awakening under the Bodhi tree and how he spent the 7 weeks under the Bodhi tree. And before going too much further, then wanted to just take some time and flesh out some of the things that have come up about the Buddha so far. So, for example, the 32 marks have been mentioned a few times, and also there's some interesting connections with different characters that appear right in the beginning after the Buddha's awakening that appear later, and sometimes we don't make those connections unless they're highlighted, so they can be quite interesting. And also the Buddha's ancestry, which is explained a little bit in the Digha Nikaya, so I'll start with a couple of excerpts from suttas from the Digha Nikaya. And this is just a very short excerpt, paragraph from Digha Nikaya, Sutta 3. The Sakyans regard King Okaka as their ancestor. At one time, King Okaka, to whom his queen was dear and beloved, wishing to transfer the kingdom to her son, banished his elder brothers from the kingdom, Okamuka, Karandu, Hatiniya, and Sanipura, and these, being banished, made their home on the flank of the Himalayas, beside a lotus pond where there was a big grove of teak trees. And for fear of contaminating the stock, they cohabited with their own sisters. Then King Okaka asked his ministers and counselors, "Where are the princes living now?" And they told him. At this, King Okaka exclaimed, "They are strong as teak, Saka, these princes. They are real Sakyans." And that is how the Sakyans got their well-known name. And the king was the ancestor of the Sakyans. And also that's interesting that teak in the Thai language is called Maisak, which comes from that word Sakya. It says the Sakyans are strong and firm like teak wood. So it's a play on words that's how the Sakyans came to be known as the Sakyans. And then I'm going to read excerpts from Sutta 30 in the Digha Nikaya, the Lakkhana Sutta, the marks of a great man. But I'm not going to read these extremely flowery verses that are included in the sutta. I'll only read what each of the marks are, and just very briefly how it came about. And the Buddha explains the qualities he cultivated in his past lives to bring up about that mark. And I found this sutta useful in terms of qualities we can be trying to cultivate, cultivating the path. Thus have I heard. Once the Lord was staying at Savatthi in Jetavana, Anathapindika's park. "Monks," he said, and the monks replied, "Lord." The Lord said, "There are amongst these 32 marks peculiar to a great man, and for that great personage who possesses them, only 2 careers are open. If he lives the household life, he will become a ruler, a wheel-turning righteous monarch of the law, conqueror of the 4 quarters, who has established the security of his realm and is possessed of the 7 treasures. These are the wheel treasure, the elephant treasure, the horse treasure, the jewel treasure, the woman treasure, the householder treasure, and as 7th, the counselor treasure. He has more than 1,000 sons who are heroes of heroic stature, conquerors of the hostile army. He dwells, having conquered this sea-girt land without stick or sword, by the law. But if he goes forth from the household life into homelessness, he will become an arahant, a fully enlightened Buddha, who has drawn back the veil from the world. And what are these 32 marks? 1, he has feet with level tread. This is one of the marks of a great man. 2, on the soles of his feet are wheels with 1,000 spokes, complete with felloe and hub. 3, he has projecting heels. 4, he has long fingers and toes. 5, he has soft and tender hands and feet. 6, his hands and feet are net-like. 7, he has high raised ankles. 8, his legs are like an antelope's. 9, standing and without bending, he can touch and rub his knees with either hand. 10, his male organs are enclosed in a sheath. 11, his complexion is bright, the color of gold. 12, his skin is delicate and so smooth that no dust can adhere to his body. 13, his body hairs are separate, one to each pore. 14, his body hairs grow upwards, each one bluish black like collyrium, curling in rings to the right. And I've heard one interpretation of the snail-like things on the Buddha image head as being symbolic of that particular great mark, that each one curls to the right. His body is divinely straight. He has 16, he has 7 convex surfaces. 17, the front part of his body is like a lion's. 18, there is no hollow between his shoulders. 19, he is proportioned like a banyan tree. The height of his body is the same as the span of his outstretched arms, and conversely. 20, his bust is evenly rounded. 21, he has a perfect sense of taste. 22, he has jaws like a lion's. 23, he has 40 teeth. 24, his teeth are even. 25, there are no spaces between his teeth. 26, his canine teeth are very bright. 27, his tongue is very long. 28, he has a Brahma-like voice, like that of the Karavika bird. 29, his eyes are deep blue. 30, he has eyelashes like a cow's. 31, the hair between his eyes is white and soft like cotton down. 32, his head is like a royal turban. Monks, in whatever former life, former existence, or dwelling place, the Tathagata, being born a human being, undertook mighty deeds to good purpose, unwavering in good conduct of body, speech, and thought, in generosity, self-discipline, observance of the fast day, in honoring parents, ascetics, and Brahmins, and the head of the clan, and in other highly meritorious acts, by performing that kamma, heaping it up lavishly and abundantly, at the breaking up of the body, after death, he was reborn in a happy state in a heavenly world, where he was endowed beyond other devas in 10 respects, in length of heavenly life, beauty, happiness, splendor, influence, and in heavenly sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and contacts. Falling away from there and coming to be reborn here on earth, he acquired this mark of the great man, feet with level tread, so that he places his foot evenly on the ground, lifts it evenly, and touches the ground evenly with the entire soul. As a Buddha, how does he benefit? He cannot be impeded by any enemy or adversary from within or without, from greed, hatred, or delusion, nor by any ascetic or Brahmin, any Deva, Mara, or Brahma, or any being in the world. That is his benefit as a Buddha. In whatever former life, the Tathagata, being born a human being, lived for the happiness of the many, as a dispeller of fright and terror, provider of lawful protection and shelter, and supplying all necessities, by performing that kamma, after being reborn in a heavenly world, he acquired this mark of the great man. On the soles of his feet are wheels of 1,000 spokes, complete with felloe and hub. As a Buddha, how does he benefit? He has a large retinue. He is surrounded by monks, nuns, male and female lay followers, devas and humans, asuras, nagas, and gandhabas. That is his benefit as a Buddha. In whatever former life, the Tathagata, being born a human being, rejecting the taking of life and abstaining from it, and laying aside stick and sword, dwelt kind and compassionate, having friendship and sympathy for all living beings, by performing that Kamma. After being reborn in a heavenly world, falling away from there and coming to be reborn on earth, he acquired these 3 marks of the great man: projecting heels, long fingers and toes, and a divinely straight body. As a Buddha, how does he benefit? He is long-lived. No foe, whether an ascetic or Brahmin, a Deva, Mara, or Brahma, or anyone in the world could possibly take his life. That is his benefit as a Buddha. In whatever former life, the Tathagata was a giver of fine food, delicious and tasty, hard and soft, and of drinks. By performing that Kamma, he acquired this mark of the great man: the 7 convex surfaces on both hands, both feet, both shoulders, and his trunk. As a Buddha, how does he benefit? He receives fine food and drink. That is how he benefits as a Buddha. In whatever former life, the Tathagata made himself beloved through the 4 bases of sympathy: generosity, pleasing speech, beneficial conduct, and impartiality. He acquired these 2 marks of the great man: soft and tender hands and feet, and net-like hands and feet. As a Buddha, how does he benefit? All his followers are well disposed to him: monks, nuns, male and female lay followers, devas and humans, asuras, nagas, gandhabas. That is his benefit as a Buddha. In whatever former life, the Tathagata was a speaker to the people about their welfare, about Dhamma, explaining this to people and being a bearer of welfare and happiness to beings, a dispenser of Dhamma. He acquired these 2 marks of the great man: high raised ankles and upward growing body hairs. As a Buddha, he becomes the chief, foremost, highest, and supreme among all beings. That is his benefit as a Buddha. In whatever former life, the Tathagata became a skilled exponent of a craft, a science, a way of conduct or action, thinking, what can I learn quickly and acquire quickly and quickly practice without undue weariness? On returning to earth, he acquires this mark of a great man: legs like an antelope's. And some of these you kind of have to use your imagination. As a Buddha, he quickly acquires whatever things befit a ruler, things that pertain to a ruler, delight him, and are appropriate to him. In whatever former life, the Tathagata approached an ascetic or Brahmin and asked, "Sir, what is good? What is bad? What is blameworthy? What is not? What course is to be followed? What is not? What, if I do it, will be to my lasting sorrow and harm? What to my lasting happiness?" On returning to this earth, he acquired these marks of the great man, or this mark of the great man. His skin is so delicate and smooth that no dust can adhere to his body. As a Buddha, he will have great wisdom, extensive wisdom, joyous wisdom, swift wisdom, penetrative wisdom, discerning wisdom, and among all beings there will be none equal to him or superior to him in wisdom. In whatever former life, the Tathagata lived without anger, perfectly unruffled, and even after many words had been uttered, was not abusive or agitated or wrathful or aggressive, displaying neither anger nor hatred nor resentment, but was in the habit of giving away fine, soft rugs, cloaks, fine linen, cotton, silk, and woolen stuffs. On returning to this earth, he acquired this mark of the great man: a bright complexion, the color of gold. As a Buddha, he receives fine requisites. In whatever former life, the Tathagata reunited those long lost with relatives, friends, and companions who had missed them, reunited mother with child and child with mother, father with child and child with father, brother with brother, brother with sister, and sister with brother, making them one again with great rejoicing. On returning to earth, he acquired this mark of the great man. His male organs are enclosed in a sheath. As a Buddha, he will have numerous students. And the Tathagata, in whatever former life, the Tathagata, considering the welfare of people, knew the nature of each, knew each one himself, and knew how each one differed. This one deserves such and such, that one deserves so and so. So he distinguished them and discerned them. On returning to earth, he acquired these two marks of the great man. He is proportioned like a banyan tree, and standing without bending, he can touch and rub his knees with both hands. As a Buddha, he will be wealthy and rich, and these will be his treasures: faith, morality, moral shame, moral dread, that's hiriotapa, learning, renunciation, and wisdom. In whatever former life, the Tathagata desired the welfare of the many, their advantage, comfort, freedom from bondage, thinking how they might increase in faith, morality, learning, renunciation, in Dhamma, in wisdom, in wealth and possessions, in bipeds and quadrupeds, in wives and children, in servants, workers and helpers, in relatives, friends and acquaintances. On returning to earth, he acquired these three marks of the great man. The front part of his body is like a lion's. There is no hollow between his shoulders, and his bust is evenly rounded. As a Buddha, he cannot lose anything: faith, morality, learning, renunciation, or wisdom. Losing nothing, he will succeed in all things. In whatever former life, the Tathagata was one who avoided harming beings by hand, by stones, stick, or sword. On returning to earth, he acquired this mark of the great man. He has a perfect sense of taste. Whatever he touches with the tip of his tongue, he tastes in his throat, and the taste is dispersed everywhere. As a Buddha, what this means is that he has digestion, which is neither too cold nor too hot, and he is equable and tolerant of exertion. In whatever former life, the Tathagata was accustomed to look at people not askance, obliquely, or furtively, but directly, openly, and straightforwardly, and with a kindly glance. On returning to earth, he acquired these two marks of the great man: deep blue eyes and eyelashes like a cow's. As a Buddha, he will be popular with and loved by monks, nuns, male and female lay followers, devas and humans, asuras, nagas, and gandhabas. In whatever former life, the Tathagata became the foremost in skilled behavior, a leader in right action of body, speech, and thought, in generosity, virtuous conduct, observance of fasts, in honoring father and mother, ascetics and Brahmins, and the head of the clan, and in various other proper activities. On returning to earth, he acquired this mark of the great man: a head like a royal turban. As a Buddha, he will receive the loyalty of monks, nuns, male and female lay followers. In whatever life, the Tathagata, rejecting false speech, put away lies and became a truth speaker, wedded to the truth, reliable, consistent, not deceiving the world. On returning to earth, he acquired these two marks of the great man: his body hairs separate, one to each pore, and the hair between his brows white and soft like cotton down. As a Buddha, he will be obeyed by monks, nuns, male and female lay followers. In whatever former life, the Tathagata, rejecting slander, abstained from it, not repeating there what he has heard here to the detriment of these, or repeating what he had heard there to the detriment of those. Thus he was a reconciler of those at variance, and an encourager of those at one, rejoicing in peace, loving it, delighting in it, one who spoke up for peace. On returning to earth, he acquired these two marks of the great man: 40 teeth and no spaces between the teeth. As a Buddha, his followers, monks, nuns, male and female lay followers, will not be divided among themselves. In whatever former life, the Tathagata, rejecting harsh speech, abstained from it, spoke what was blameless, pleasing to the ear, agreeable, reaching the heart, urbane, pleasing and attractive to the multitude. On returning to earth, he acquired these two marks of the great man. His tongue was very long, and he had a Brahma-like voice, like the Karavika bird. As a Buddha, he will have a persuasive voice. All monks, nuns, male and female lay followers will take his words to heart. In whatever former life, the Tathagata, rejecting idle chatter, spoke at the right time what was correct and to the point, of Dhamma and discipline, and what was bound up with profit. On returning to earth, he acquired this mark of the great man, jaws like a lion's. As a Buddha, he cannot be overcome by any foe or hostile thing from within or without, by lust, hatred, or delusion, by any ascetic or Brahmin, Deva, Mara, Brahma, or anything in the world. In whatever former life, the Tathagata, rejecting wrong livelihood, lived by right livelihood, refraining from cheating with false weights and measures, from bribery and corruption, deception and insincerity, from wounding, killing, imprisoning, highway robbery, and taking goods by force. On returning to earth, he acquired these two marks of the great man, even teeth and very bright canine teeth. As a Buddha, his followers, monks, nuns, male and female lay followers, will be pure. And so anybody who wants to read that whole sutta without all the omissions, that's Sutta 30, the Lakkhana Sutta in the Digha Nikaya. And now we go to newly after the awakening. This is a description of the Buddha, which it's not exactly sure exactly where it happens in the chronology, but it includes one of these marks, so it ties things together. Anguttara Nikaya, Book of the Fours, Sutta 36, Dona. On one occasion, the Blessed One was traveling along the highway between Ukata and Setavya. The Brahmin Dona was also traveling along the highway between Ukata and Setavya. The Brahmin Dona then saw the 1,000-spoked wheels of the Blessed One's footprints with their rims and hubs complete in all respects, and thought, "It is astounding and amazing. These surely could not be the footprints of a human being." Then the Blessed One left the highway and sat down at the foot of a tree, folding his legs crosswise, straightening his body, and establishing mindfulness in front of him. Tracking the Blessed One's footprints, the Brahmin Dona saw the Blessed One sitting at the foot of the tree, graceful, inspiring confidence, with peaceful faculties and peaceful mind, one who had attained to the highest taming and serenity, a tamed and guarded bull elephant with controlled faculties. He then approached the Blessed One and said to him, "Could you be a Deva, sir?" "I will not be a Deva, Brahmin." "Could you be a Gandhaba, sir?" "I will not be a Gandhaba, Brahmin." "Could you be a Yakha?" "I will not be a Yakha, Brahmin." "Could you be a human being?" "I will not be a human being, Brahmin." When you are asked, "Could you be a Deva?" you say, "I will not be a Deva, Brahmin." When you are asked, "Could you be a Gandhaba?" you say, "I will not be a Gandhaba." When you are asked, "Could you be a Yakha?" you say, "I will not be a Yakha." When you are asked, "Could you be a human being?" you say, "I will not be a human being." What then could you be, sir? Brahmin, I have abandoned those taints because of which I might have become a Deva. I have cut them off at the root, made them like palm stumps, obliterated them so that they are no longer subject to future arising. I have abandoned those taints, because of which I might have become a Gandhabba, a Yaka, by which I might have become a human being. I've cut them off at the root, made them like palm stumps, obliterated them so that they are no longer subject to future arising. Just as a blue, red, or white lotus flower, though born in the water and grown up in the water, rises above the water and stands unsoiled by the water, even so, though born in the world and grown up in the world, I have overcome the world and dwell unsoiled by the world. Remember me, Brahman, as a Buddha. It ends with verses. I have destroyed those taints by which I might have been reborn as a Deva, or as a Gandhabba that travels through the sky, by which I might have reached the state of a Yaka, or arrived back at the human state. I have dispelled and cut down these taints. As a lovely white lotus is not soiled by the water, I am not soiled by the world. Therefore, O Brahman, I am a Buddha. And this Brahman Dona, so arriving on the scene somewhat early, we assume, in the Buddha's life there, in the Buddha's fairly soon after the Buddha's awakening, and he appears again in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, and the note says it's the same Brahman Dona, and he actually is the one who divides the relics. So I'll just read a couple paragraphs from the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, Digha Nikaya, Sutta 16. And King Ajatasattu, Vedehiputta of Magadha, heard that the Lord had passed away at Kusinara, and he sent a message to the Mallas of Kusinara. The Lord was a Khattiya, and I am a Khattiya. I am worthy to receive a share of the Lord's remains. I will make a great stupa for them. The Lichavis of Vesali heard, and they sent a messenger. The Lord was a Khattiya, and we are Khattiyas. We are worthy to receive a share of the Lord's remains, and we will make a great stupa for them. The Sakyas of Kapilavatthu heard, and they sent a message. The Lord was the chief of our clan. We are worthy to receive a share of the Lord's remains, and we will make a great stupa for them. The Bulayas of Alakapa and the Kolyas of Ramagama replied similarly. The Brahmin of Wetadipa heard, and he sent a message. The Lord was a Khattiya, and I am a Brahmin. And the Mallas of Pava sent a message. The Lord was a Khattiya, and we are Khattiyas. We are worthy to receive a share of the Lord's remains, and we will make a great stupa for them. On hearing all of this, the Mallas of Kusinara addressed the crowd, saying, The Lord passed away in our parish. We will not give away any share of the Lord's remains. At this, the Brahmin Dona addressed the crowd in this verse. Listen, lords, to my proposal. Forbearance is the Buddha's teaching. It is not right that strife should come from sharing out the best of men's remains. Let all be joined in harmony and peace, in friendship, sharing out portions 8. Let stupas far and wide be put up, that all may see and gain in faith. Well then, Brahmin, you divide up the remains of the Lord, and in the best and fairest way. Very good, friends, said Dona, and he made a good and fair division into 8 portions, and then said to the assembly, Gentlemen, please give me the urn, and I will erect a great stupa for it. So they gave Dona the urn. Now the Mauryas of Pipalawana heard of the Lord's passing, and they sent a message. The Lord was a Khattiya, and we are Khattiyas. We are worthy to receive a portion of the Lord's remains, and we will make a great stupa for them. There is not a portion of the Lord's remains left. They have all been divided up, so you must take the embers. And so they took the embers. Then King Ajatasattu of Magadha built a great stupa for the Lord's relics in Rajagaha. The Lichavis of Vesali built one at Vesali. The Sakyans of Kapilavatthu built one at Kapilavatthu. The Bulayas of Alakapa built one at Alakapa. The Kolyas of Ramagama built one at Ramagama. The Brahmin of Wetadipa built one at Wetadipa. The Mallas of Pava built one at Pava. The Mallas of Kusinara built a great stupa for the Lord's relics at Kusinara. The Brahmin Dona built a great stupa for the urn. And the Mauryas of Pipalawana built a great stupa for the embers at Pipalawana. Thus 8 stupas were built for the relics, a 9th for the urn, and a 10th for the embers. That is how it was in the old days. So just thinking that's an interesting connection that Brahmin Dona appears again there right at the end. I'll just end with continuing on in chapter 3 of Life of the Buddha. Now, while the Blessed One was alone in retreat, this thought arose in him. There are 5 spiritual faculties that, when maintained in being and developed, merge in the deathless, reach to the deathless, and end in the deathless. What 5? There are the faculties of faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and understanding. Then Brahma Sahampati became aware in his mind of the thought in the Blessed One's mind, and as soon as a strong man might extend his flexed arm or flex his extended arm, he vanished in the Brahma world and appeared before him. He arranged his upper robe on one shoulder, and raising his hands palm together toward the Blessed One, he said, "So it is, Blessed One, so it is, Sublime One. When these 5 faculties are maintained in being and developed, they merge in the deathless, reach to the deathless, and end in the deathless. There was once a time, Lord, when I lived the holy life under the Buddha Kassapa. There I was known as the Bhikkhu Sahaka. It was by maintaining in being and developing these 5 faculties that my lust for sensual desires faded away, and that on the dissolution of the body after death, I reappeared in a happy destination in the Brahma world. There I am known as the Brahma Sahampati. So it is, Blessed One, so it is, Sublime One. I know and I see how these 5 faculties, when maintained in being and developed, merge in the deathless, reach to the deathless, and end in the deathless." Now, while the Blessed One was alone in retreat, this thought arose in him. This path, namely the 4 foundations of mindfulness, is a path that goes in one way only, to the purification of beings, to the surmounting of sorrow and lamentation, to the disappearance of pain and grief, to the attainment of the true goal, to the realization of Nibbana. What are the 4? A bhikkhu should abide contemplating the body as a body, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. Or he should abide contemplating feelings as feelings, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. Or he should abide contemplating consciousness as consciousness, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. Or he should abide contemplating mental objects as mental objects, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. Then Brahma Sahampati came and expressed his approval as before. Now, while the Blessed One was alone in retreat, the thought arose in him, I am freed from that penance. I am quite freed from that useless penance. Absolutely sure and mindful, I have attained enlightenment. Then Mara, the evil one, became aware in his mind of the thought in the Blessed One's mind, and he went to him and spoke these stanzas. You have forsaken the ascetic path, by means of which men purify themselves. You are not pure. You fancy you are pure. The path of purity is far from you. Then the Blessed One recognized Mara, the evil one, and he answered him in stanzas. I know these penances to gain the deathless, whatever kind they are, to be as vain as a ship's oars and rudder on dry land. But it is owing to development of virtue, concentration, understanding, that I have reached enlightenment, and you, exterminator, have been vanquished now. Then Mara, the evil one, knew. The Blessed One knows me, the Sublime One knows me. Sad and disappointed, he vanished at once. Now, while the Blessed One was alone in retreat, this thought arose in him. He lives unhappily who has nothing to venerate and obey. But what monk or Brahmin is there under whom I could live, honoring and respecting him? Then he thought, I could live under another monk or Brahmin and respecting him in order to perfect an unperfected code of virtue or code of concentration or code of understanding or code of deliverance or code of knowledge and vision of deliverance. But I do not see in this world with its deities, its maras, and its divinities, in this generation with its monks and Brahmins, with its princes and men, any monk or Brahmin in whom these things are more perfected than in myself, under whom I could live, honoring and respecting him. But there is this Dhamma discovered by me. Suppose I lived under that, honoring and respecting that. Then Brahma Sahampati became aware in his mind of the thought in the Blessed One's mind. He appeared before the Blessed One. Lord, it is good. The Blessed Ones in past ages, accomplished and fully enlightened, lived under the Dhamma, honoring and respecting that, and those in future ages will do so too. I'll leave it there. We have a few minutes for questions. If anybody has any questions. Sure, I think Ajahn Ñāṇiko did that, but I don't know if Lumpur has heard. Has like memorizing the 32 parts of a great man as Buddhanusati. Have you heard of people doing that before?
No. Something cool.
Yeah, he's Ajahn Ñāṇiko.
Question, the Buddha is very specific with 32 marks. It's a bit confusing to me because he's normally not that specific. Can you give some thought around why? Because some of it's a little bit far-fetched as well.
Yeah. So I think it's really good for Westerners to hear teachings like this because it's that part of us is a little bit out of balance, and I think in my opinion, in terms of the going too far toward the scientific literalistic interpretations and for me, I take from it, the reason I didn't read the verses, which are even more flowery than those descriptions, is because of those qualities that were cultivated. So like a lot of times it's not so clear, like the details about the cause and effect relationships of karma. So I think it's more about actions, like the one about the dark blue eyes, like that makes me think kind of Ajahn Sake, like the way he might look at people. And I think, that's what the Buddha's talking about in terms of cultivating the causes for that. So like you could take it metaphorically or literally, but the suttas they don't have to be taken as like this is true, everything else is false, but just to take it as on a feeling level. That's how I hold it anyway.
Ajahn, what's the other way to practice Buddhanusati? I know it's pretty popular in different forms.
You want one call?
Well, I think that's the other way. I mean, it doesn't mean there's only one other way. Buddhanusati is it's pretty broad in its application, and much of it is to me is concerned with the qualities of a Buddha. What is it that makes up a Buddha? Being an awakened being, and so that say like the chant that we do of the iti piso bhagava araham sambuddho vicha, those are 9 particular qualities, and so that those are but they're more internal qualities. Say the arahant being one who is purified, or the way that's translated in Thai is far from defilement, and so that sense knows, and Vicājana, somebody who is purified in knowledge and conduct, and so there's all and Buddho, it literally means awake, one who's And you can extrapolate on that in all sorts of different ways. And so that's a helpful way. I remember one time at Wat Nana Chap, there was a Vietnamese monk who came to stay with us. He and Ajahn Ñāṇiko arrived at the same time, and he was extremely knowledgeable, very well educated as a monastic, and he ordained at a very young age, and was very interested in practice as well, well versed in the Theravada and Mahayana, and so he was quite. But anyway, he at one rains retreat he gave a talk, like a daily talk, and he just took one word, like Bhagawa, and then gave a whole 40-minute, 50-minute, hour kind of explication of what those qualities mean and examples, and I was really so as a Buddhanusati, it was wonderful. Of course, then he went through Dhammanusati and Sanghanusati, and it was really quite wonderful. And so that's another way of certainly of Buddhanusati, going to say what do those qualities mean, and then 32 marks of a being, of a Buddha, an awakened being like that. Not just an awakened being, but a Buddha. It does come about through, as Ajahn Ñāṇiko was saying, these are results of karma, sort of the manifestation of beautiful conduct, or conduct that has benefited others, and so that's another way of looking at it. What are the qualities that were cultivated over many lifetimes? So Buddha's arising in the world is not just some kind of random event in the universe, and that's completely by chance, and there's causes and conditions, and they have characteristics, and which ones one feels kind of comfortable with. I mean, part of it is there's probably all sorts of historical, cultural kind of nuances to some of them. But in general, there would be some sort of special quality. I remember one time we was at Wat Nana Chap, and we didn't have a Buddha image in the Bodh, the Uposatha hall, and I was in kind of two minds at least, if not more, of whether I wanted one. I definitely wanted a Bodhi tree, which we planted. But then there was an Anagarika there who was a sculptor. He wanted to do a sculpture of a Buddha image, and I didn't promise him that we'd put it up, but I said, see what it looks like, and so he worked, and it's still in clay, so you could do anything you wanted with it. But so it's still in the clay model, and then he had me come and take a look at it, and my first feeling was, no, a Buddha would not look like that. maybe, but not a Buddha. Who was really muscular and had his meaty hands. I said, no. I mean, there's a certain refinement to the qualities, and they really, I've seen so many monastics who have, they just have such a bearing, and it's obvious they've been doing, steeped in goodness for who knows how many lifetimes, and the sort of features are quite beautiful, and I think of Loppa Panyananda is a really good example. I mean, you've met him. He's this incredible bearing, very noble, and he really does have these long ears, and his hands were really quite beautiful, and his limbs were very kind of even. So it's sort of like, okay, that's not, I mean, it really looked like, he got off the hockey rink and put him in full lotus. I mean, the Buddha wouldn't look like that. But that's a characteristic externally, and I think what's really useful in terms of Buddhanusati, I mean, there are the historical circumstances that one can bring to mind that one's inspired by, because what one's doing with Buddhanusati is trying to lay a foundation of faith, or saddha, faith, confidence, trust, inspiration, devotion. So because that's a useful quality for our spiritual practice. We do want to rely on our intellect and our rationality